Fair enough. Well, before we share the sources, I want to share a story with you. Um, it is it relates to the issues of Miketz and of the remembering of dreams, remembering and remembering. And I think what we're going to do is focus on the rabbinic text, faithfully following dreams. But I suppose we should draw a line, at least a quick line through the earlier sources. However, still there is a story that comes before. It's a story of something that took place in 1970, in the fall of 1970, around Rosh Hashanah. I was having a talk with my grandfather. It's before Rosh Hashanah, just a few days. And I wished him a good Yontif. And then I started to cry. And he said to me, "Why are you crying? I'll be with you for 13 years. And I woke up in the morning and it had been a dream. My grandfather had been dead for 6 or 7 years. And I told Sibby I thought she was pregnant with Noah, with Jacob, with our Jacob, with his namesake, with my grandpa's namesake. And she didn't have any reason to suspect that I was right, so she didn't believe me. But it turned out that our Jacob was born in June. I was anxious to share my dream with her, but I didn't really share the whole dream. As you might imagine, the part that said, "I'll be with you for 13 years, I didn't share. It was just too ominous, too on the edge of terrifying to actually share it. And while I was anxious to share the dream with lots of people, I never shared that part of the dream that said that I'll be with you for 13 years. I always modified it to mean I'll be with you for a long time. But I myself could not untangle myself from the image of that dream, which was 13 years. It was so ominous. And then came the time of Jacob's bar mitzvah, and it was a wonderful time. And even I was having a wonderful time, but there was a kind of a subcoating, a lower layer in which I was not having such a wonderful time. And I was thinking about 13 years. And Jacob came up onto the bima for our dialogue, for his haftarah, for our dialogue. And then I went to put my hands on top of his head, and something happened. What I hadn't told you was that I was interested in having a Jacob. I was interested in there being another Jacob. Jacob, just like my grandpa. And I didn't want anybody to call him anything other than Jacob. I couldn't handle it. I couldn't handle him calling him anything other than Jacob. Not Jack, not Jay, not JJ, not, whatever it would be. It needed to be pristine and it needed to be Jacob. And that's the way I kind of protected him, as it were, from all of the other possible nicknames in the world. And then I put my hands on top of his head while we were standing on the bima. And it occurred to me just in that moment that I didn't need to do that anymore, that maybe that was the pshara, maybe that was the explanation of the dream, at least for me, that I could forfeit the attention or forfeit the need to call him Jacob. Other people could call him what they would, and I could still call him Jacob. And he was now a big enough person in the world to be responsible for his own name and for what other people called him. So for 13 years, I had safeguarded my grandpa Jacob's name and reputation. And now I no longer had to do that. And Jacob was doing it for himself. And indeed, there are people who were waiting in the wings, who had always from time to time slipped by calling him Jacob or Jay or something like that. And Jake became his handle for email and for other kinds of things. He himself called himself Jake, and other people called himself Jake, but I didn't have to worry about it anymore. So it's a question in my mind of how it is that one handles troubling dream images, or how one handles dream images altogether. I tried to tamp it out, but I couldn't do it. I tried to forget about it. I tried to relegate it to some level of memory that was almost below memory, so that I didn't have to worry about it or be concerned with it. But I couldn't do it. On the day of his bar mitzvah, it all came back to me. And something like that, very similar, happens in Parashat Miketz this week. And I bring it to you because it eerily reminds me, the son of that Jacob reminds me of the grandson of my grandpa's Jacob and my own son Jacob. One of them a dreamer of sorts, and the other one dreamed and then becoming a dreamer, all taking off of their Alta ancestor, who was the great dreamer and maybe interpreter of dreams. And it goes back to the extraordinary image of what it meant for Joseph to be in the pit. And while he was in the pit, you can just imagine that this dream image, and now you can put the text up, Adam. If you can.
Did that work?
It's just a very narrow strip of text for me. I don't know how it is.
Here, let me unspotlight you. Maybe this will show up better now. Try this.
No.
You don't.
I see it. Do other people see it?
I see it.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Fair enough. And
You know it by heart, so.
Fair enough. And I have it in front of me. First, a poem by one of my favorite Israeli poets, Rivka Miriam. I put on and stripped off the pit in turns, or perhaps it was the pit that robed me and stripped me off. I was crowned in its depths, blind in my shrouds, and it was crowned in my depths, until crown made no difference, until it was never enough. Does the image spin around and around and around, putting off the pit, putting it back on again, having it stripped off of me, like the great coat was stripped off of Joseph, and then putting it back on again, and just having that pit deeper and deeper, and having Joseph, in effect, in the pit, and the pit in Joseph, deeper and deeper than before. The poem is one that deserves being returned to a number of times, but we're not going to do that right now. We're just going to let the image wash over us, that Joseph was very much affected by what happens in the pit, and it sinks as deep as he does. This is an image to which the poet Rivka Miriam returns. And now comes more of the part that's relevant to me in my grandpa Jacob's dream. Not the pit that was in Joseph, but the dream that rose from Joseph, that rose out of the pit from Joseph or followed him, the pit that remained in him and also rose with him when he rose out of the dream. And Rabbi Levi taught that one should keep a dream image in mind for 22 years. Why is that the case? Joseph was 17 years old when he dreamed 2 dreams of rulership over his family. He was 30 when Pharaoh elevated him to power. Add to those 13 years of servitude 7 prosperous years, and 2 lean years that brought the other sons of Jacob to purchase grain, finally coming before Joseph, their estranged brother, and not recognizing him, perhaps because he actually brought them right there into his very courtroom. Some midrashim saying that Joseph directed anybody who speaks the language of the Semites bring to me. In any event, it was 22 years later that Jacob caught a glimpse of his brothers once again standing before him. Vayizkur Yosef et chalomot asher, or et hachalomot asher chalam lahem. Joseph remembered the dreams that he dreamed concerning them. That's what Parshat Miketz says in chapter 42, verse 9. And it proves Rabbi Levi's very interesting point that dream images maybe should be held around. And we should keep them useful. We should keep them supple. We should wait for them to achieve some kind of fruition. Maybe we shouldn't push too hard. Maybe they're going to happen. Maybe merely keeping them in mind is part of what it means to make them come true. Joseph remembered the dreams that he dreamed concerning his brothers. Rabbi Levi says, perhaps for 22 years, at least that's all the data that we have in the Torah. If it was more years than that in the computation of the Torah, then we would have more years than that, but we have 22, and that ain't nothing. But maybe 22 is actually a good stand-in for keep dream images with you as long as you have to keep dream images with you. Well, now there are a couple of faithful ways of following the dream. One of them is Rashi's, and one of them is the Ramban, Nachmanides. And Nachmanides brings both. He brings his own and he also brings Rashi. And Joseph remembered the dreams which he had dreamed of them, concerning them. And now he knew that they had been fulfilled, for they had bowed down to him. The brothers had bowed down to him. This is the language of Rashi. In my opinion, however, the matter is the reverse. What? Rashi says, Joseph remembered the dreams which he had dreamed of them, which is to say concerning them, and now he knew that they had been fulfilled, for they had bowed down to him. The brothers had bowed down to him. This is what Rashi has to say, but the Ramban says, no, that's not good enough. The matter is the reverse. For scripture states that when Joseph saw his brothers bowing down to him, he remembered all the dreams which he had dreamed concerning them, knowing that at this point, neither dream had been fulfilled. He knew that it was inherent in their interpretation that according to the first dream, at first all of the brothers would bow down to him. And it says, and behold, we were binding sheaves of grain. For we refers to all 11 brothers. And Benjamin was missing from the complement of brothers in this case. In the second dream, the sun, the moon, and 11 stars would bow down to him. Now, since he did not see Benjamin with them, he conceived of a strategy of devising a charge against them, such that they would bring his brother Benjamin in order to fulfill the first dream in its proper order. That is why he did not want to say to them, I am Joseph, your brother, or say, quickly, go to my father and send wagons, as he did to them the second time. Remember, the first time Joseph is much more circumspect. He doesn't identify himself as Joseph. He doesn't reveal himself to his brothers. He doesn't share the dream images. He doesn't predict how those dream images might come out. He doesn't take them to the next level because all of the brothers are not there and the dreams have not been fulfilled. It was only after the fulfillment of the first dream that he told them, I am Joseph, your brother, to fulfill the second dream in its proper order. Were it not for this reason, Joseph would certainly be regarded as having committed a great sin, bringing against his father, bringing anguish to his father, leaving him for many days in the position of being bereft and mourning for Shimon and for himself. Even if it were his intention to cause his brothers minor anguish, how did he not have compassion upon his elderly father? But following the wisdom of Kohelet, he assigned each its proper time, each thing in its proper time and in its proper moment, says the Ramban. So it's interesting. He was even willing to risk having a little bit of, causing a little bit of agmas nefesh, a little bit of anguish to his brothers and even to his father, the truth is. The father whom we might have thought from time to time, well, the father maybe set him up for all this anyway. Why is the father such a good guy and go blameless through all of this? Well, maybe he doesn't. I mean, Joseph is a slave and then second in command to Pharaoh for a whole lot of years in Egypt and never even sends a postcard on a Sunday to his father, not a phone call, not nothing. Does he think his father has set him up for this? How about his brothers? Does he know that they have set him up for this? What kind of anger does he harbor? What kind of resentment does he harbor? But here's Rashi who says, no, fulfilled perfectly in this particular way or fulfilled sufficiently in this particular way as soon as they first bow down to him. And the Ramban is saying, no, all of the particulars have to be fulfilled and all of them in the right order before you can actually say that they were fulfilled and reveal what the image might have been. So I bring you these two things. We don't really have time to reflect over them, so we won't reflect over them right at the moment. But there is something very interesting here about Vayizkor. We're learning something about the word Vayizkor et hachalomot. That Joseph keeps them in, I don't know, in his head like in a journal. And in order to be fulfilled, they have to be fulfilled. If they are from heaven, they need to be fulfilled in a particular way. If they were meant to unfold in the dream life and then unfold in real life in a particular way, let them unfold in that particular way and in no other way. And there was no other thing that would stand in for that kind of dikduk, for that kind of particularity. In any event, it wanted me to move forward to give you another image, one that comes from one of my favorite teachers, from James Hillman, in a book edited by Thomas More, a book called A Blue Fire, in which he is reflecting. This student of dreams, James Hillman, is interested in preserving dream images and animals for that matter. So we get to talk about him for a minute. A black snake comes in a dream, a great big black snake. And you can spend a whole hour with this black snake talking about the devouring mother, talking about the anxiety, talking about the repressed sexuality, talking about the natural mind, all those interpretive moves that make people make what is left, what is virtually important. What is that snake doing? This crawling, huge black snake that's walking into your life. And the moment you've defined the snake, interpreted it, you've lost the snake. You've stopped it. And then the person leaves the hour with the concept of my repressed sexuality or my cold black passions or my mother or whatever it is. And you've lost the snake. The task of analysis is to keep the snake there. And there are various ways for keeping the black snake. See, the black snake is no longer necessary the moment it has been interpreted. And you don't need your dream anymore because they've been your dreams anymore, because they've been interpreted. There's something important about keeping the black snake alive. There's something important about keeping that big, beautiful, slithering, multicolored, sometimes purple, sometimes black, sliding scale of measures seething across the table or the floor. Animal, dangerous, beautiful, not dangerous, enticing, intriguing, repelling. There's something about keeping the black snake in the dream. It gets bleached right out of the dream if we let go of the images. We'll go back a millennium and a half to Rabbi Levi, who taught that one should keep a dream image in mind for 22 years. Here he's talking about the master dreamer, and the one who not only is the master dreamer, but maybe more just as important, he remembers his dreams, and he sets up the conditions whereby his dreams can be fulfilled and moves towards them. And according to Rashi, it's fulfilled this way, but according to the Ramban, no, it's not fulfilled until it's fulfilled in all of its specifics and in all of its proper order. But there is something about keeping the image. Now, what Joseph did with the image of the dream afterwards, that's a different question. And that's maybe one for us to pursue a little bit. But to keep the dream images alive, to reach that moment where you go up on the bima, wondering whether your child is going to literally melt away and die under your hands, or whether something is going to happen that's going to be transformative. That's a moment. And one can only reach that moment when one reaches that moment. And when one does, it's quite possible for the worlds to expand, to be bigger, for there to be a dream previously undreamt hiding right underneath the dream image, or a reality shared hiding right under the dream image that before had husked over. Okay, well, thank you for your time.